Yeah, want to welcome everyone. Holding by the Noahide laws. Again, want to welcome everyone. Holding by the Noahide laws. Start speaking about prayer and what would be appropriate for a non-Jew to say, right, so to speak, or not say by prayer, because again, we want to make sure a non-Jew is going to stay a non-Jew. And they're not going to cross. They're not going to cross over. Right? We don't want any crossovers over here. Either you're going to be a non-Jew who keeps the laws that apply, or you convert. Right? Seemingly nothing in between. So anytime we mention, prayer book, we mentioned before, we're using the Art Scroll Classic Edition, Nusach Ashkenaz, right? We're using Ashkenazic pronunciation here, etc., and the way the prayers are set up. So we mentioned last week that Noahides can adopt any Jewish mitzvah, really in all its details, provided, again, this is a very big provided over here, provided that the mitzvah is logical, or provides a tangible benefit to society, oneself, or the world as a whole. And there are many, many mitzvahs, as we mentioned, like Shabbos, festivals that do not apply. They don't apply. They're not logical. They don't apply to the world as a whole, etc. So one of the mitzvahs that are logical have to do with what? They have to do with prayer. So there are other types of mitzvahs as well, right, which are normally divided into three categories. One category is what we call michuyeves, which means I'm obligated. Mitzvahs that you must do, i.e. mitzvahs involved in establishing justice courts. They're obligated. You're obligated. Non-Jews are obligated. Set up law courts. Right? Anything that, that come underneath the Noahide laws. Not as a nice piece of advice, but I'm obligated. Something I'm obligated to do. Second category is reshus. Reshus means mitzvahs that are optional. That means a mitzvah exists, could apply to somebody, but you're not punished or liable if I don't do it. Why? It's optional. Not obligatory. But if I do the mitzvah, and I'm not obligated, then you get rewards. You get merit for doing so. So, I got an obligated, I got one category of being obligated in mitzvahs. One category is optional. Third category is mitzvahs which have no application at all. In other words, they're inapplicable to some people, i.e. Kohanim, temple priests have commandments that are unique to them, not unique to anyone else. Right? I'm not a Kohen or a Levite. Now, there aren't many things that Kohanim and Levites do today, but there are certain things. So anyone who's not a Kohen or a Levite doesn't do it. It doesn't apply over here. Now, it could be other Jews are not allowed. The person says, I want to adopt this mitzvah. I want to take on doing something Kohanim do. Well, there's only one problem. You're not a Kohen. You're not from the tribe of Levi. So how can you do it? You're not allowed to do it. It's risky, spiritually dangerous. To adopt the mitzvah, not commanded. Right? You could also get punishments. And that goes for Jews and non-Jews. Right? And Noahide. You got to be careful in adopting certain things. They don't have an obligation or a connection. Now here you got to think. Right? A non-Jew in Noahide over here has to keep what applies to them. Ew. Has to keep what applies to them. So how can a Jew in general say, I want to be a Kohen? Well, you're not a Kohen. How do I know I wasn't a Kohen? My father wasn't a Kohen. He would know. And his father would know. Something that is known. But I want to do this. Doesn't matter what you want to do. If it doesn't apply, how can you do it? It doesn't apply. If the person does something doesn't apply, he gets severely punished. So it's not worth it. But the problem is, people say, I want to do this, and I want to do that. You know what? You know what we'd say in Boston? Who the heck cares? I care what you want to do or you don't want to do. Does the Torah tell me if I'm allowed to or not? If I'm not allowed to do it, if my Rebbe would say, go eat kugel. You can't do just what you want. Right in that favorite song, can't always get what you want. No matter what you want to do. Are you a Kohen? No. I want to be a Kohen. Was your father a Kohen? No. And you can't do it. I can't tell you how many times people go, I want to do this, I want to do that. Okay, so what? Where do you want to do it? Doesn't matter if you want to do it. Doesn't apply, doesn't apply. 7 mitzvahs and subdivisions fall into the first category. Obligatory. Right? Jewish mitzvahs have no connection to Noahide, i.e. most dietary laws or observance of many Jewish holidays fall into this third group. Now, let's reiterate this point. We want to make it very clear. Ray, you're going to love this. Right? Repeat after me. Right? There are mitzvahs that apply to only Jews. Who? Jews! They don't apply to non-Jews. Dietary laws don't apply to non-Jews. One of the great commentaries on Chumash chapter 11, book of Leviticus says, you see non-Jews eat all kinds of creepy crawly things, speaking about dietary laws. And you see, nothing happened to them. Or maybe except eating the bats in Wuhan, but okay, it's a different issue. But you see, it doesn't affect them in a negative way. So if they eat creepy crawly things and who knows what, and it doesn't affect them, so it comes along this commentary and says, so why would they do it? Because the non-Jews aren't going to keep any mitzvahs that don't apply to them, that don't make sense to them. Take that to the super Noahides. Tell them that. This doesn't apply. Oh, I'm going to keep kosher, I'm going to get married, but you don't have the same soul makeup. If you don't have the same soul makeup doesn't affect you like it affects you. So why are you going to do it? To prove I can't. They don't apply. Jewish mitzvahs have no connection to Noahide. That was 3 times. I want to make sure people understand. If it's got no connection, don't do it. It's got no connection. It's kind of like this woman comes to a rabbi. I want to wear a tallis. So he goes, okay. He gives her a tallis to wear. She comes back 2 weeks. Says, Rabbi, I don't understand all the attention I had in prayer. You don't understand how much it helped me. Rabbi said, what are you talking about? No, that tallis, that prayer shawl you gave me, unbelievable. Unbelievable intention I had. He goes, I didn't give you a prayer shawl. Like, what are you talking about? Had fringes on it, had tzitzis on it. He said, yeah, but I nullified it. I cut off one of the tzitzis. So it doesn't have the status of a prayer shawl. It's nothing. It's like putting an oversized towel over your head with it on. So what did I feel? He goes, I don't know, but you didn't get the mitzvah. Like, and she all dejected. Like, what do you mean I didn't get the mitzvah? You didn't do anything. You know why? Because the prayer shawl wasn't a prayer shawl. Because the tzitzis can't be cut off at a certain point. And if you cut them off at a certain point, it's not tzitzis anymore. It's invalid. So you wore an oversized towel. Thank you very much. But I felt so spiritual. You didn't feel anything because you didn't get the mitzvah. That's the point. Over here, it doesn't apply. What are you going to get from it? The commentary says a non-Jew would never do anything. It doesn't. First of all, not only doesn't make sense, but it doesn't get benefit. If it doesn't affect the non-Jew the same as the Jew, why are they doing it? I can tell you why they're doing it. Ego! They want to be like Jews. Sorry. No dice. Don't pass go, don't collect 200. No, mitzvahs compelled by logic or practical benefit fall into the second category. If the reshut, they want to do it, fine. They'll get merit for doing it. If it's got benefit, do I have to, as a non-Jew, and no, I'd have to perform it? No. But it's logical to do so. They can. They definitely can. Now, we're going to look at blessings over here and see if anything applies. There's a blessing there are blessings that are obligatory, or as we say over here, michuyeves. There's a mitzvah for Jews before they eat, because they have to make a blessing, otherwise they're guilty of being a feast. They're getting benefits, but without praising God. What's the origin? Is it from the Torah or from the rabbi? Now, if you look at one blessing in particular, i.e. Birchos HaMazon, grace after meal, right? Ashkenazi prayer book, page 184. At the bottom, what's the obligation? Where does it come from? It comes from Deuteronomy chapter 8, verse 10. You shall eat, be satisfied, bless God your Lord for the good land he's given you. No obligation. The question is what blessings are talking about. That we're going to have to see. So from here, what do I say? I would say grace after meal is Torah obligation. But there are two further blessings. Now, the one said before learning Torah, the prayer book, page 17. What we call main shalosh, page 201, or alamichia, ala gefen. If I eat certain species of fruit that the land of Israel prays for, dates, pomegranates, figs, etc., right? Or any type of grain, right? A person eats a cookie, let's say, right? That's got wheat, barley, spelt, rye, or oats. Now, that could be wine also, could be biblical in origin. But trying to pin it down is problematic. So many authorities believe the blessing for learning Torah is biblical, but no clear consensus the origin of main shalosh. Now, again, it's for certain grains, fruits, and wine, which the land of Israel is praised by, fruits, etc., and grains. Now, in Deuteronomy chapter 8, verse 10, where I make grace after meals, right? Also, there's an obligation to recite the blessing. But others disagree, whether it's a Torah origin or not. Right? Some say it's a rabbinic origin. There's no clear consensus. So the blessing of learning Torah is also very unclear. Very, very unclear. So most authorities say, even though it's unclear, what do they hold? It's biblical in origin. But again, whether it's biblical or not, so what? Still have to do it. Doesn't really matter. Right? It's an academic exercise. But the reality is, there are some applications. There are some practical applications for Jews, but in the bigger scheme of things, it doesn't really matter. The point is, there's an obligation. Right? Because God gave us something in this world. He gave us the ability to eat from it. So anytime we get benefit, not just by food, God's doing a great act of loving kindness. Therefore, shouldn't we acknowledge what he's done? It comes on the Talmud. The Talmud says, there's a discrepancy in verse, contradiction. Comes on Rabbi Levi, and he says there's a contradiction in two verses. One verse says the earth and its fullness belong to God. Right, Psalms 24, verse 1. Another verse says the heavens belong to God, but the earth, would he give it to man? Contradiction. Psalms chapter 115, verse 16. So now I get a contradiction. Did it come from God or from man? So how do you resolve the contradiction? He states one verse refers to establish the world before a person recites the blessing. The other after its recitation. Said Rabbi Chanina bar Papa. Person derives enjoyment from this world without a blessing. It's as if you're stolen from God. Now, I've had people, I give this over my conversion classes. I've had people say, I don't get it. Why are they a thief? Why are they a thief, OB? So it's very simple. And that is, they're considered a thief because they got benefit without thanking the Creator. You ate something, you're going to say, man made it. Man took the seeds, plowed the land, and this and that. And how the seeds make trees, make fruit and all that. Oh, it's the DNA of the seed. Very good. And where the DNA of the seed came from? Seed! Where did it come from? Obviously, it didn't just pop out of nowhere. And every seed has the DNA for that seed. And when you plant it, all things being equal, plenty of sunlight, water, all the good things. You're going to take an apple seed, it's got the DNA to produce an apple tree, hundreds of apples. Why? That's nature. Very good. Where did nature come from? Where did nature come from? Oh, that's the way it's been for forever. Why? Why doesn't it change? Why is there some mutation that it stopped after so long? Because, but that's the nature of the seed. Yeah, but that didn't answer the question. That's the nature. Good. Where'd it come from? So therefore, if we partake and get benefit in this world, certainly as Jews, we're going to praise God. Because He's the one who put it there. He's the one who allowed us to get benefits. So before a person eats a piece of fruit, who did it belong to? Not to me. It belonged to the store. It belonged to God. He created it, nurtured it, brought it to its place in its existence. So how can a person eat from the fruits unless he redeems it by making a blessing on it? Otherwise, the person takes the fruit, gets benefits, and guess what? Like he stole. Because he's not thanking the Creator for what he has. Now, there's also speaks about a concept we mentioned way back in lesson 5, and that is, where do we learn all these laws from? From the Torah. Not from the prophets of the writing. Right? Torah being, more authoritative. Now, why do I have the prophets in the writing? Because they elucidate our understanding. Make it easy to understand the words of the Torah. They're supporting biblical decree. Well, now it's interesting, the Gemara does not use these Psalm verses as biblical proof. There are supports to rabbinic proposition. But where is the real proof? Deuteronomy chapter 10. Right? I think that's what it was. Chapter 8, verse 10. So the other verses are there for support. But the main verse comes from the Torah. So, at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. There are ramifications for Jews, whether it's rabbinic or from the Torah. Some people get stuck around that also. This is a rabbinical, gotta listen to the rabbis, Deuteronomy. Tells me, gotta listen to the Kohanim and the Levites in every generation. No matter what they say, I have to do. As long as they don't contradict what Moses said. So that means that they say right is left, the Torah says. And left is right. I still have to listen to them. So who are the Kohanim, the Levites, in every generation? The rabbis. Again, not going to go in, we spoke about oral law. But something that people have a hard time, because most non-Jewish Christians been been duped by the church. Why should you listen to men? Why should you listen to your rabbis? Why are you going to listen to them? You're going to listen to the Karaites? They don't exist. I don't care if there are 50,000 of them in the world. How many, when's the last time you heard, a big Karaite rabbi say X, Y, and Z or do anything in the world? No, never heard anything. Pretty much they disappear. I don't care if there are 50,000, but they don't exist. They don't have any power to do anything. They're disappearing anyway. Right? So, regardless of where it comes from, we still have an obligation. Right now, there's going to be a major difference between a Jewish obligation and a Noahide obligation. Now, Jews make blessings over benefits. Whatever they benefit from, that's obligatory. Even though most blessings are rabbinic, with the exception of the blessing after a meal and possibly a few others, nonetheless, even if it's rabbinic, we have an obligation to make that. To make these blessings. Person forgot to make a blessing, it's a transgression. Certainly for a Jew. Now, it makes sense religiously, right? There is logic over here. And the logic is, and for Noahides, there's a second category, the voluntary. Right? But again, for Jews, why is it obligatory? Because it makes sense, you're getting benefit from the Creator. Now, how can you get benefit from the Creator? Thank you. That's akin to theft. Now, what about blessing after meals? Grace after meals. Isn't that biblical in origin? It is, but who was the commandment? Commanded the Jews, not the Noahide. The idea of making a blessing after meals still makes religious logical sense. That would compel all other blessings. Comes along the Rambam, the laws of blessing, based upon the Talmud defines three categories of blessing. One is blessing over benefit. Look at the prayer book, page 225, meaning food, drink, spice. So we get benefit. We got blessing over mitzvah, page 227. Right? God gave us commandments to benefit mankind. So we make blessings to fulfill those commandments. Right? And what's the main part of the blessing? Blessed are you, God, the source of all blessing, rule of the universe, held us with his commandment of hearing the shofar, commandment of reading the book of Esther, commandment of whatever it is. Third command, or third blessing, is the blessing of thanks, praise, gratitude. On page 229. So now, if we look at category 1 and 3, blessing over benefit and thanks and praise, those are most relevant. So now, second category is complicated, even for Jews, right? Blessing over mitzvah. A lot of details, exact wording, type of blessing. Not all mitzvahs require blessing at all times. Some never do, right? One example, it's no blessing for the Shema. We don't say, blessed are you, God, King of the universe, who commanded me to say the Shema. We don't say that. Not in the morning, not at night. There are paragraphs before and after, but there's no direct command to say the Shema. Right? One example. Some, since the second category is generally inapplicable for Noahide, i.E. mitzvahs, so we're going to look at the first and the third over here. Now, what does it mean? Right? We'll get down to the nitty gritty here. What does it mean to bless God? Can I really bless God? In other words, am I going to say something that's going to bless God? Is God already blessed? What am I going to add to it? But the idea of blessings is to express gratitude. That's why their verse, blessed are you, or God, the source of all blessings. What would I thought we should say? Thanks and gratitude unto you. That's what I would think. So if God is the source of all blessings, right, then what's the obvious question? Obvious question is, who are we? Us little peons over here. We're going to bless God. If God doesn't lack anything, one of the first of the 13 principles of faith, God is absolute. God doesn't change. God is not fickle. If that's the case, he's perfect. So if he's perfect, what am I going to add? What am I going to say? God, those beautiful rings of Saturn. Oh, Chaim Coffman, thank you very much. No, the moon. Unbelievable. Thank you very much. Oh, snow, this. What am I adding to him? I'm not adding anything. God gives me an opportunity to draw close. It gives me an opportunity to understand his awesomeness of what he does. But for me to add to him, I'm going to bless him if he's already blessed. He's going to say, what do you have to cotton picking head? God needs a blessing. Question, certainly not a new question over here. Right? There, a number of points here that basically go in the same direction. The commentary on Maimonides called the c.Other that says, blessed are you, O God, the source of all blessing. What's that? An acknowledgement God is the source of the concept of blessing. Where does it come from? It doesn't come from us, it comes from God. He's the source of all blessing. Come on, the Rashba, an acronym for Rabbi Shlomo ben Aderes, early 1300s. Major early commentaries. Brings down a response of, right? And he says that what is blessing over here? It's an admission God is in control of what? Of everything. He's the source of everything. Just like the Talmud says, the person has to bless God for the bad just as he blessed him for the good. A lot harder dresses, for the bad. What do we say, God forbid, when we have someone we have to mourn for? right? A mother, father, sister, brother, God forbid, child or spouse. So before they're buried, we have to say, "Blessed are you, God, King of the universe," right? Who's the true judge, Diana and Net. It all comes from him. And everything's from him. Does that mean if we say evil comes from God, God is evil? No. Right? So the idea is, the Christians got a problem with it. How could God have made evil? We do Mr. S. That's why they changed Isaiah chapter 45, verse 7. They don't say God created evil. It doesn't fit their world outlook. Now people say God created evil must mean he's evil. Who says he's evil? Go back to the class on Derech Hashem. God said what? As the Ramchal said, he created evil. Gives people the choice to tap in or not. And we shouldn't tap in. If a person does, they're liable. Doesn't mean God is evil. So again, the word bracha, blessing, comes from the word brecha, which means reservoirs of water. In allusion to primordial waters of creation, source of all things. God rules over everything. He's in charge. Nothing is outside of him. The Atlantic Ocean makes a deal with the wind and say, "Hey, let's make an earthquake, a tsunami. Let's fly half the Southeast Asia and put Atlas back on the map." No pun intended. God said, "No, bad idea." So they tried, they hopped and they popped, and guess what? Nothing happened. So we can't do anything on their own. If God says, "Good idea," doesn't let them do it. Comes on the Chizkuni, same commentary in the Torah, right around mid 1200s, by Rabbi Yisrael ben Manoach, and he says the word Baruch, when applied to God, is like a greeting implying a supreme praise. It must be understood the regular sense of the word blessed. Then, some things translate better than others, but here means supreme praise. Goes along with Chaim Coffman, and then for Chaim, famous student of the Vilna Gaon, died in 1821. And he says if you look at the word bracha, that's Reish Chaf Hey. Right? It implies burgeoning abundance. Even the letters of the world, Beis, Reish, and Kaf imply something. Why? Because what's the numerical value? Right? Every letter has a numerical value. Beis is 2. Kaf is 20. Reish is 200. So you get 222. So regardless of such, right? Oh, what do we see? Interesting enough. The numerical values 220 and 200. Do the math, multiples of 10. Right? Interesting enough. So anyway, with all these interpretations, blessed refers to God's statement of praise. The abundance, not only acknowledgement and gratitude, but show that God's in charge. No other thing in this world has any power outside of him. That would go against our own 13 principles. Right? That God is absolute. If he wasn't absolute, then he's fickle. God forbid. And that means that morality is relative. No such thing. We don't believe in any of that. Morality is not relative. Morality is exactly what God says and what the rabbis say. Now, if we look at the text of the blessed, that they were first recorded by Ezra about 350 before the Common Era, and takes a lot of study, contemplation over here, what it is. Comes on the Rambam. Others to say it's not appropriate to alter the text of the blessed. But to have to subtract, if anyone deviates from them, is a mistake. Now I would say like this. First of all, I want to make up my own blessing. I want to make up my own prayer. Now, a person can. Right? Jews have fixed prayer. Can they pray, whatever they want? They could. At any time. They have fixed prayers. They can't go against that. But they can say their own prayers as well. Outside the times when they normally pray. But that being the case, the question always is, So why do I have to say fixed prayers? Say the same thing every day. Right? Additions on Rosh Chodesh, the new month, festivals, Hanukkah, all kinds of things. So my answer was, and will still be the same, that if Ezra, the men of the Great Assembly, made up a lot of the prayers. Now, some of the men in the Great Assembly were prophets. And a lot of the people there had the ability to bring people back to life. It's just the generation wasn't worthy. So Coffman would say, again, it's my opinion, take it for what it's worth. But I would say if these people had the ability to bring people back from the dead, even though the generation wasn't they weren't worthy of it, then my answer would be, I'm going to listen to whatever they tell me to do. So they're going to come on, it's a cop-out, you're worshiping them. No. Nobody in this generation, previous generations could bring people back from the dead. Maybe the Vilna Gaon could. But just about everybody else, even great rabbinic scholars, did not have that power. They didn't have that power. So, if these people have that power, who am I to say anything else? Again, people may not like that answer, okay? Right? But what does the Rambam here say? Anyone who substitutes the text, they think they know better. Conservative movement changed some of the prayers in the morning. Instead of saying, don't make me a slave, in the negative, they make me a free person. That looks bad. Totally looks bad. Take out the blessing of don't create it, think I'm not a woman. Another guy would say, oh, you can't say that. That's sexy. But what's the connotation? What's the connotation? The negative statement, don't make me a slave. Thank God I'm not a slave. Thank God I'm not a woman. Because slaves are obligated in the same things women are obligated in. Women are not obligated in mitzvahs that are bound by time. They have to keep Shabbos, kashrus, other things. And even things that are bound by time, they're still obligated in, right, in general. The difference between Ashkenazim and Sephardic, for example. An Ashkenazic woman can sit in the sukkah and make a blessing. A Sephardic woman would make a blessing because it's not obligated. Right? There are subtle differences. But there's a connection. Their connection is how many mitzvahs we have to do. So the guy's going to say, thank God I'm not a woman. Not because of birth and other things. They'll say, thank God I'm not a woman. It has to do with mitzvahs. Women don't have as many mitzvahs as men. They're not obligated to keep mitzvahs that are bound by time. So I'm making a blessing, thanking God I have so many more mitzvahs. Boy, am I a sexist. Am I anti-slaves over here? Right? So why are we going to change the blessing? If you'd understand the context, they'll say, no, that's apologetics. Excuse me, who made up these blessings? The rabbi. Were the rabbis great individuals? Bring people back from the dead if their generation warranted it? Am I arguing with? No, we know more. We know better. We're the rabbis this, the rabbis that. Right? People open up their big mouths. Can you bring people back from the dead? No. You have a clue on that? No. I live in the 20th century, 21st century. Modern men. Let them change everything. Let the movement change everything. Let the conservative movement change everything. And guess what? They're all dying. Repeat after me. a.The, b.The. That's the morning prayer. They're all dying. Even if I would agree it's a good thing to do, I don't. But even if I would agree, what's the end result? The end result is it doesn't work. 70-80% into marriage, all the dogs are dying. They're all dying. Now they charge too much. They do this. Right? Someone told me, their synagogue has 1,000 families. They're down to 400. Down 60%. I think they're down like 60% over 20 years. So what's the excuse? The excuse is they're using too much. That might be true. The people can't afford it. Okay. And I would answer sarcastically to make it free. How many of the second generation are going to come and be part of the synagogue if you made it free? A handful. You're going to get the 60% back? Nope. You know why? If their parents don't believe in it, and their parents didn't believe in it, so therefore it's going to die. It's just a matter of when. Father, a friend, a synagogue nearby where I grew up, and the son of my father, whatever, I knew many years. And, I told my father, I said, on Rosh Hashanah, they merged with a few synagogues to have services. So I said, take the gavel, go in the bima, in the lectern and say, my son in Israel says, repeat after me, it's got a mortar spirit, it's over. Right? They're all going to die. Well, how do I know? If the age of these synagogues is 75. So what's going to happen? They're going to die eventually. So the person said to my father, you tell your son, we're not going to die. We're never going to die. 2 years later, they sold the building. 2 years later. You're going to say, Rabbi, unbelievable, you're a prophet. They're not prophets. Not prophecy at all. Writings on the wall. The average age, you have 100, I don't know, a couple hundred members. The average age is like 70. You're in trouble. You get no youth. You have no youth. People are going to get sick. They're going to start dying. And who's going to replace them? Nobody. It's over. You want to make innovation? You want to change this? You want to change that? Okay. Does it work? Doesn't work. A fossil. Right? It's like a mule because it's a really strong animal. Anyone doesn't know it's a hybrid between a horse and a donkey. What's the one problem with the mule? Sterile. Same thing, all these other movements. Sterile. They will die eventually. It's only a matter of when. Any case. So, what the rabbis are going to tell us to do, we'll do. Because they knew a heck of a lot more than we do. With all our innovation, with all our knowledge, all our technology, you see the accuracy, the Rambam, wrote about Rosh Chodesh, the new month, and all his calculations. And he was medieval. And he had all this information. Boy, he didn't have, maybe he had an advocate, maybe. He didn't have side rule. That was much later. What the Rambam know? The Rambam knew the Rambam was a doctor. The Rambam knew the properties of plants and knew how to put them together to heal people. Let's get a doctor today. Person sick, they diagnose it. Let's say they get the right diagnosis. Take this, take this medicine. Why? Just take it. They're going to know the medicinal property, unless you're a holistic medicine or whatever. Are they, is regular GP going to know where what the medicine's doing? They'll say, yeah, it works because it does this and does this. Do they know the medicinal properties? No. Most of them don't. They'll just tell you what works. Okay? Right? The Rambam was medieval. He knew what plants did. He knew what each plant did. He knew what his purpose was. Oh, what the Rambam knows. He knew a heck of a lot more than we did. A heck of a lot more. So, sages instituted the text of the Jewish community. Not for non-Jews. Let's repeat that. Not for non-Jews. Let's repeat that a third time. Not for non-Jews. So what do Noahides do for blessings? Why would they have a use for blessing? So really, they can use any text for a blessing that satisfies the core idea. Right? And that is acknowledging God as the creator of all things. He bestows the benefits to create. Now we understand the reason for doing this is the same for both Jews and non-Jews, and for Noah. Religious logic. So therefore, the text formula by Ezra should be good for Jews, fine. Right? Should definitely be good for both. For this reason, not only permissible, maybe preferable. Noahides to use established texts found in Jewish prayer books. Right? So maybe that would be the case. Now, an exception over here is that the blessing said after meals, grace after meals. Now, I page 185 at the bottom. Prayer. Could be also main shalosh, as we said before. Could also be an exception. But the blessing was originally one paragraph, composed by who? By Moshe Rabbeinu himself. So they had 3 more paragraphs pertaining solely to who? The Jewish people. They don't apply to non-Jews. There are 3 paragraphs that have nothing to do with non-Jews. 0. So why should Noahide use this text? They shouldn't. Forbid it. Now the Medrash comes along and records an Noahide blessing for after meal. Look at that. God that Abraham excelled in offering hospitality to his guests, but never asked his guests to thank him or pay him, but he only asked them to thank God. Recite a blessing thanking God. What was the blessing? Blessed is the God of the universe, whose bounty we have eaten. All right, brings that down the Medrash. So therefore, that was recited after any meal, any filling meal. Whether or not you ate bread, doesn't matter. So no, I could say that. And if you had in Psalm 64 or 104 before, it's also good. So there have been many texts composed for Noahide for after meals. Right, this book by Moshe Wiener and J. Emmanuel Shoichet, in the pamphlet Prayer, Blessing, Beliefs, Principles of Faith, Divine Service for Noahide. That we use in addition. That we're gonna see. All right, that we're gonna see in the next. We're gonna see that in the next class. Yeah. Any questions on that? Somebody asked. So we praise him for all his attributes. Not his 13 attributes. Right? We say, Sephardic people say it every day, except on Shabbos, and festivals, and Rosh Chodesh. And Ashkenazi Jews only say it on fasting. Hashem Kirachum Chanu. Right? God's God before we sin, after we sin, God of mercy, God of strength, God of power, etc. Yeah, we do praise him for all that. Even, God forbid, something bad happens. We also say a blessing. But one day, that's going to be in the future. We're going to be able to, to say that prayer for the good just like for the bad. Sorry, let's say better. I said it backwards. We're going to say a prayer for something that happened that's bad. We're going to say it just as much as it, we're going to see the good. You can't see it now. Very hard to see now. You know what? The person, went through this, went through that. How is that good? It's very hard to see. To say, well, the bad is good. It's not for now. It'll be not for now. So the reality is, we are praising him for all of that. See, that's where the Christians have a problem. Because they got to say, God can't be evil. We didn't say he's evil. He created evil. But where does evil come from according to them, Mr. S? Right? The Satan, the evil inclination, the angel of death, whatever you want to call it. He's a fallen angel. No such thing. We don't believe in fallen angels. Right? Made 2 videos on Tanakh Talk. Right? You Google Tanakh Talk, my name, and fallen angels. So discussed it over there. Well, there's no such thing according to you. No such thing. So yeah, we do praise him for all things. Good and bad. Because really nothing comes, over time I think said, nothing bad comes from God. God view it. We may view it as bad. God is not bad. It's a book I would never recommend anyone to read. It's called When Bad Things Happen to Good People. Written by Harold Cush. Now he had a son, tragically died of progeria, which is a disease that you have a 10-year-old in the body of an 80-year-old. It's a terrible disease. So basically says in this book, well, check my deeds, check my wife's deeds with people. Must be God doesn't run the world. That was his conclusion. Now no one should ever have to go through such a thing. But the answer is, what do you do at the end of the 2 chapters of the end of the book of Job? Where God says to Job, hey, can you play with the Leviathan like I can? Can you save these birds and these animals that the parents want to eat them up or whatever, and I save them? Can you do that? No. So what does God say, Job? Just shut your mouth. That's what he says. He says, shut your mouth. You don't know anything that goes on. You know anything that happens, so who are you to complain? Who are you complain what you see? You don't know anything what you see. Everything emanates from him. Doesn't mean we don't have free will. We have free will. Might be limited, but we have free will. But in the end, no matter what, that's where it comes from. And he's the one that runs the world. Our Rebbe said many times, I'll mention it here as well. The mantra for today is, God, you're the one in charge. Person's in dire straits, that's the mantra. No matter what I do is insufficient. I put my best foot forward. Is there a guarantee? Business, other things? No. But I have to put my best foot forward. But who makes the end decision? Not me. I can put my best foot forward and get a goose egg. I can put my best foot forward all kinds kinds of things happen. Why? Any rhyme or reason. You can say better advertising, better this, better that. But you know what? God did. That's one. That's the only reason. Don't make sense otherwise. Person can say, I did this, I did that. So how come you have people that do the same thing? You know, lawyers, doctors, some make more, some make less. Why? Oh, he's better at this. He's not as personable. He has less crime. Yeah, we can make excuses, but you know why one makes more money than the other? I do with them. They have to put their best foot forward. I agree. But why is that? Because God's the one who makes the decision. Right? Right? When we finish these Noahide laws, right, Ray, we're going to do Sharpie Duckling. We're going to do the gate of belief and faith in duties of the heart. That'll change the way people think, guaranteed, nothing talking. We'll get there hopefully one day. Yeah, so any questions on any of that? Anything about Noahide's blessings, right? And what they're obligated in or not obligated in. Again, this is just by way of introduction. What it means to bless God and all that. Any questions on any of that? Yeah. All right, let's see. All right, if there are no other questions, you can send me an email. Next week, I'm not going to be around because my daughter's getting married on Thursday. So we got, 6-7 days, festive meals at night. So I'm definitely not going to be around on Sunday. So next week's going to be a no-go. But whatever, we'll be back hopefully after that. Someone says, yeah, you can ask. Someone says you're the Ukraine's president, secular Jew intermarry. Could be. I just did a video on Tanakh on it's what's going on in Ukraine. Is that the beginning of the end of days? So I'll tell you, yeah. So there is no class next week. There might be a class on Book of Leviticus, not even in the morning. Morning time for most people. In the States, that I still might be around for, but any night class for me, I'm not gonna be around. But one thing I mentioned is that, there are a lot of Jews stuck there. There are a lot of Jews stuck there. But the reality is that former, Russia and, and the Ukraine have an absolute tremendous amount of Jewish blood on their hands. And hopefully no Jew should be killed. They should be able to escape. But they are not guilty over here. People think, free Ukraine, all that. The Rambam says there's a scale of every city, every town. The scale goes up and down based on the deeds that they do. And if God sees that the deeds themselves, I know it's in my camera here, whatever, but if God sees that the deeds themselves go on the side of evil, at some point there's going to be payback. Whenever that's going to be. There's so much Jewish blood from the Ukraine and from the Russians, from World War II. Right? People ask the question, hey, we've gone during the Holocaust. Why did you kill 6 million Jews? Well, it takes a lot of people to kill 6 million Jews. Right? You had the Latvians, you had the Germans, you had the Poles, you had the Ukrainians, you had the Russians. That's not the question. The question is where was men. But we're not even talking about the Holocaust, per se. Right? Not getting into the bigger picture. Bottom line is, how many Ukrainians killed Jews? How many Russians? 10,000. Not to mention, communism destroyed, made them atheists and all that. Tens of thousands. Millions. They destroyed spiritually as well. I think God's going to pay him back? Oh, he's going to pay him back. He 100% is going to pay him back. This could be payback. See where it goes. We'll see where it goes over here. But there is going to be payback. Definitely payback. We should pray, definitely, for Jews in Ukraine to escape. No question. They're sort of caught in the middle. But you know what? It's a lot of blood that's spilled on both sides. And hopefully the Jews escape. Between the Ukrainians and the Russians, not a bad thing. This is divine judgment. Right? That's what I spoke about on Tanakh Talk. This is 100% divine judgment. No question about it. And they have it coming. All of Europe has it coming. For all the Jewish blood there. So one of the major Kabbalists here in Israel, in Jerusalem, says that the war of Gog and Magog, who are the first people going to get whacked? The whole of Europe's going to get whacked. Not the Quran Israel, i.e., what do you call it? Egypt, Syria, Lebanon, these other places. Because there's so much Jewish blood in Europe. Now, not everyone necessarily agree, okay? Right? Plenty of Jewish blood in that area. Plenty of, so they have it coming. How it manifests itself, where it goes, where it ends up. Where it ends up, nobody knows. 100% nobody knows. But make no mistake, I said this probably 10 times in the video, make no mistake, it's divine judgment here on both. Because both are going to lose a lot of people on each side, depending how far it goes. Question, can you say a Yeshiva for a non-Jew? Yes. That is definitely allowed. You pray for non-Jews. Definitely allowed. Yeah, any other questions? Definitely feeling all the good vibes by the wedding. The son-in-law get called out to the Torah. The Kiddush afterwards. Very nice. Very, very nice. So, got 4 days to go. My new just came. So we're getting, it feels like it's right before Passover. Like you make a list, you got to check it twice, you got 20 other things to do. So, Hashem, should all be good. Thank you for the well wishes. In any case, if there are no other questions, I'm going to sign out. Again, anyone has any questions, feel free to shoot me an email. Definitely can shoot me an email. And next week, again, I will, mention this to Ray, and, we can put it out there that next Sunday I'm not going to be around, but we'll continue the week after. We're kind of on a roll here. Things are, things are going well. So, we're going to, I feel bad to break the momentum, but what can I do? So we'll continue with this, I guess, in a couple weeks. Otherwise, I'm going to sign out. Wish everyone a good middle of the day or almost end of the day. Oh, look at that. Fact. And, almost end of the day for me. And everyone have a great rest of the week.